Hey everyone, Clawland here, and welcome to another episode of Left Hand Reviews. Sorry I've been out of the picture, just been really busy lately and lazy, for lack of a better way to put it. So anyway, without further ado, let's see what's on the docket today, and that is Elemental Clash. Elemental Clash is a card game playable with 2 players, although there are some multiplayer variants, but it's primarily a 2-player card game. It was released in 2009 and designed by a designer named Andreas Probst. It plays in about 20 to 30 minutes and is primarily a tactical deck building all-out slugfest. Now when I say deck building, I mean the original deck building, as in you have a large pool of cards and you build yourself a deck prior to the game, in this case of 40 cards, and then you play with that deck against another player who's constructed their own custom deck. Okay, so this is vis-a-vis the old collectible card games like Magic the Gathering, Star Wars, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, etc., etc. Now it's important to note that those of you that have may seen this in the past, it was reviewed by some other reviewers a little while back, is that it has gone through a few cosmetic design changes, and that's as a result of the game changing publishers. So you may have seen or heard about the Elemental Clash starter sets and the Fat Pack, which is a collection of all the starter sets, and those have kind of gone away as it is now self-published on the Game Crafter, and this is now the definitive version, the Master set, or the Master Edition Basic set, rather. So this is all of the cards for the basic core set of the game. Now, if you have any of the other editions, you can still play with them. There are just some cosmetic changes to the layouts of the cards on the front and the back. So unfortunately, I think you probably have to get some opaque colored sleeves to sleeve them if you want to integrate them with the new set. But regardless, it's well worth it. So one last thing I wanted to note about Elemental Clash before we dive in is that the designer, Andy Probst, did all the artwork for the basic set, and for the expansions, which I'll mention at the end of the review, he did all the line art and another artist colored him in. So I think that's really neat as well, that he was basically involved in the entirety of the game. So let's dive in and I'll show you how it plays. So here are the cards that you get in the basic set. There's around 250 or so of them. I don't remember the exact count, but you get the idea. It's a big old stack of cards. Now, on the back of the cards, you have this nice artwork that matches the cover of the game box. And you have a really nice layout on the face of the card as well. And these are borderless cards, which I absolutely love. So you can see at the top of the card, you're going to have the name. And this is the octopus. You're going to have basically its level, which this is a level 1. You're going to have the type of card, which this is a creature, and it is a creature type of Kraken, because there's some cards that can benefit creatures of the same type. Then you're going to see its attack value in the red shield there of 0, its defense value in the shield green shield, which is 1, and then you have the text that applies to this particular card, which it says, if you destroy Octopus, prevent all damage that would be dealt by creatures until the end of the turn. Also, a lot of these cards have flavor text. So here's another one here, Sea Serpent, and I love flavor text. This one says, whales are the staple diet of the ancient and mighty sea serpent. So I think flavor text is a lost art in a lot of card games, so it's nice that the designer took the time to add that. So overall, you can see that these cards look really, really nice. If you have seen the previous editions of the game, you can see the evolution that he's gone through as far as the card design and layout and it's just really great to see just how far the game has come. Here we can see the element stones, the namesake of the game, Elemental Clash. And let's see, let's just look at some other artwork here. A war banner. Let's see what else we got here. Ogre Berserker. Jupiter's Protection. And this is a spell. And so there's all sorts of different card types. So let me go over kind of the different card types, the basic structure of the game, and then how it's played. The game centers around our four major elements: fire, air, earth, and water. And what these element stones are going to do is produce an element, or an energy, rather, of that particular element for each stone that you have. Now, this game has a very minor spatial element in the sense that you're going to have your element stones at the bottom, then you're going to have a second row that is your defense row of your defensive creatures, and then you're going to have a top row that's your attack row. And there's a nice illustration in the instructions that I'll show you because that sums it up really well. So you can see here you have your hand, your element stones, your defense zone, your attack zone, and on the right hand side there you have your spell book, which is your draw deck, and your archive, which is the discard. So let me give you a brief overview of the game. So everyone's going to start with a hand of 7 cards, which is going to contain your creatures, your spells, and your element stones. And the first thing that you're going to do after the standby phase, which I'm not going to go into right now because there's not enough cards on the table for that to matter, but the first main thing that you're going to do is first play an element stone, if you have any. So you can play a maximum of 1 element stone, and you play down here in your element stone pile. So I'm playing a fire element stone, and it says produces 1 fire energy. So put that there. Now after you place your element stone in your element stone row, then you get to play cards from your hand. So I'm going to look and see if there's any cards in my hand that I want to play. Now, how do you know if you can play it? Well, that level of the card up there corresponds to the amount of energy that it requires. So the fiery arrow requires 1 fire energy, and this happens to be a flash spell, and I'll explain what that means later, but essentially it's a spell. Now, I also have the opportunity to play the salamander, which happens to be a creature that's a level 1. So I have to decide whether I want to play that spell or that creature. And what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to play the salamander, you put it onto the element stone pile that is more or less powering it. And that brings up an interesting mechanic to this game, is that you can only put 1 card on top of an element stone pile. So remember, I had 2 different cards that I could have played, and I have to choose which one I want to use, because now that pile is used up until the standby phase of my following turn. So again, that's going to bring up even more questions about, on a later turn, let's say I have another firestone that I want to play, do I want to add it to this pile, so this is now produces 2 energy, or do I want to start a new pile so I can summon 2 different things? So anyway, let's say I summon my salamander there, and then let's fast forward to my next turn. So the next turn, we're going to move into the standby phase, and that's where you're going to take all spells that you had played on element stones and put them in your discard pile, and that's when you also take your creatures, and you're either going to put them in your defense area or your attack area. So I'm going to take this guy and put him in my defense area. Now on later turns during the standby phase, you can swap them back and forth, so they're not necessarily stuck there. So again, let's say it's back to my turn. Standby phase, I put this guy here. I do the draw phase, I draw a card, and now we move to the main phase, where I can now play another element stone. Let's say I'm going to play well, here's a good one. How about, I'm going to play the earth stone on top of the firestone. And then I am going to play the Ritual of Smoke, which is a level 2 fire card. Now, you're saying, well, wait, I only have 1 fire and 1 earth. Well, here's how it works. When you have a stack of element stones, they all produce generally 1 element. And that is the element that is lowest on the stack. So this is a fire element stack. It has 2 energy stones on it. So this produces 2 fire and 0 earth. The earth is just here to contribute to the power of the fire stone. It's always the bottommost one. So I would play this spell on it and take the action on the spell. Oh, and one thing that I missed before is when this salamander comes into play, it does have a play effect, which means that takes place immediately. And it says put the topmost card from your spellbook into your archive. So when I placed this earlier, I should have taken the top card here and put it in my discard pile, like so. And remember, once this is depleted, you lose. Okay, so again, let's say I had played that Ritual of Smoke now, and that says target player discards 2 cards from his hand, so the other player would discard 2 cards from their hand. Alright, pretty self-explanatory. The next thing after I decide to play stuff is that I can now choose to attack. Now the way attacking works is that only creatures in the attack row can attack. So let's pretend I had moved my salamander up to the attack row. Now when he attacks, he can either attack a player's creature that's in the other player's attack row, or he can attempt to attack the player themselves. If I choose to attack another player's creature, I'm going to say Salamander is attacking so-and-so. He's going to deal 2 damage. If the defense of the opposing creature is equal to or less than the attack of Salamander, of course that creature dies, goes into their player's archive. If I choose to attack the player, I'm going to say I'm attacking you, the player, and now if the player has any cards in their defense row, they can use those cards to defend against Salamander's attack. If they choose to do that, Salamander determines how his 2 hit points or his 2 attack are distributed if the other player decided to block with multiple creatures. Any excess damage is applied to the player. So let's say they chose not to block or they didn't have any to block. I deal 2 damage to the other player, which means they simply discard 2 cards from the top of their spellbook. And again, remember, when this is depleted, they lose. And that's really all there is to the game. It's just going to be back and forth, draw a card, play element stones, play spells, play creatures, and attack each other back and forth. And it's very quick and very easy to learn. So let me go over some of the different types of cards. So of course you already know creatures. They generally have an attack and a defense and some sort of effect. Then we have our standard spells, which you play on your turn, just like I had showed before. Now we also have what are called flash spells. So this fiery arrow is a flash spell. It says deal 2 damage to target creature or player. A flash spell means you can play it at any time on your turn or your opponent's turn, but remember you always have to have the element stone pile open for it. So say it was my opponent's turn, they say, oh, I'm going to attack you, and then I, boom, play the fire arrow flash spell. And I can choose to maybe deal that 2 damage to one of their creatures that was attacking me or something like that. Another type of card that we have here are the neutral element stones. And this one happens to be a spark stone, and it produces 1 neutral energy, and it says destroy spark stone, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So that's kind of nifty. Now if you have a neutral guy on here, it's going to contribute here to the fire energy. So now this is 3 fire energy. If a neutral's on the bottom, sadly it does not produce neutral energy. The stack always produces the bottommost element stone. So if this was the case here, this would produce 3 fire energy. Make sense? One last thing that I want to bring up, and I think this is one of the most exciting aspects of the game, is cards that have this ability called Boon. Boon means you have to discard cards from your spellbook in your archive, and you discard a card that has Boon on it. It immediately jumps into play, and if the spell takes effect. You don't need to have any element stones open for it or anything. It jumps right into play. So if an opponent did damage to me and I discard this, the Shattering Wave immediately comes into play and says put target element stone on top of its owner's spellbook. So I could say, put this back on top of your spellbook if this was in their element stone pile. Sorry, that's their archive. Pretend it was here. So that is really neat. If you go to discard a card that's a creature that has Boon on it, it immediately comes into play, either in your defense zone or your attack zone, your choice. So that is a really neat aspect of this game. So you may be getting pummeled by the player, but each time they do damage to you, if you have Boon cards in your deck, every time you discard cards, you're likely to pick up one of those Boon cards and you're right back in the game without even having to have the element stones for them. And finally, one other effect that some creatures have here is called Quick Attacker. Basically, when you put the summon the card onto an element stone stack, it can immediately attack. It immediately is treated as if it is in your attack zone, so it can attack or be attacked. And then obviously when it comes back to your standby phase, it's going to come onto the board as per normal. Alright, so let me give you just a quick overview of a turn, and it'll all fall together and make more sense. Hopefully you guys can see this alright. So the first thing that's going to happen, let's say it's this player's turn, is the standby phase. They're going to take anything that they have on their element stone piles, in this case a creature, put it into play. So they're going to put this guy in their defense zone. Remember, element stones, defense, and attack. Alright, and now they are going to draw a card. And now they have a choice to play element stone, so I'm going to play another air stone. Remember, I can make this a 3 or start a new pile. I'm going to start a new pile because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the Wind Wanderer here onto my 2, because this is a level 2. And I'm going to play my Lightning Spirit on the 1, and that is a 1. Okay, and the Lightning Spirit happens to have Quick Attacker. So the first thing that I'm going to do is use his Quick Attacker to attack the opponent's Salamander. He has a 1 defense. This guy has a 1 attack. He has a 2 attack, 1 defense, so it's a wash. They both die. Okay, now it's opened up for my Jupiter Stormmaster to attack, since they don't have anybody to defend against him. So my Jupiter Stormmaster is now going to attack. He does 3 damage. And now the player here has to discard 3 cards from their spellbook. So they're going to do 1. Oh, boon. It's a boon effect. It says deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So as soon as that comes in, this player chooses, and they're going to say, get rid of that Stormmaster. Blah, he's dead. But he also, of course, has to take the remaining 2 damage. Boom, another boon. And this is an energy, so you can choose where to put it. So let's put it here. And then that 3rd damage is just a element stone with no boon ability. And so that's going to conclude this player's turn. Now it comes to this player, their standby phase. They have nothing here. First thing that they're going to do is draw a card, choose to play an element stone, say they don't have any that they want to play. Then they have the option to play a creature card or a spell. Oh, let's say he's got an Ogre Berserker. He's going to play that onto here. But he's got nothing that he can do because this guy does not have quick attack, so his turn ends and it moves to the other player. And again, it's just going to go back and forth like that until one player's entire spell book is depleted. Elemental Clash. I really think Elemental Clash shines. For me, it fills a niche that a lot of other games do not fill. I'm really a pretty big fan of Summoner Wars because I like that easy to learn, all-out Battle Royale brawl that happens in 20 to 30 minutes, and you have a great time. You can immediately reshuffle the cards and do it all over again. And that's what I like about Elemental Clash. Back in the day, I used to play Magic the Gathering, and this really fills the niche, or fills the hole that Magic left when I stopped playing. But here's the thing. This is an expandable card game, not a CCG. So when you buy the basic set Master Edition, you're going to get all the cards in the basic set. You don't have to keep buying booster packs and have tons of duplicates and you know, always be worrying about that. You buy one set, you have all the cards, just like a lot of the other card games out there. Fantasy Flight calls them living card games. So it's the same idea as that. You don't have to keep buying those boosters. And the game really fills that niche very well. And I know I keep saying that, but it does. It's clear that the designer is paying homage and took a lot of inspiration from Magic the Gathering, because that was a game that I know he really enjoyed, and he told me that while we were talking about Elemental Clash. And I think that's a very good thing, because it's a great game, and he was able to construct a very, very good game that fills that hole for players that enjoy that type of game. The artwork in the game is very, very good, and I really like that the designer of the game also did all the artwork, and there are a ton of cards. There's like 250 cards in this basic set, and there's only a maximum of 3 duplicates of each card, because that's the maximum number of duplicates allowed in your standard deck, with aside from the element stones, of course. So it's awesome to see all those different cards, all the different drawings, and since they're all from the same designer, they all feel like they go together. They're all the same style of artwork, which I really like. The card stock that these cards are printed on is your average standard card stock, and I love the fact that they are borderless. I hate white bordered cards, black bordered cards are okay, but I just think borderless cards look really nice. I say you probably would want to sleeve these just to protect them and protect that great artwork, but there's not much more I can say about that. They're standard playing card size. What else? There are quarterly expansions that come out for Elemental Clash, and there are already 2. We have I have this one here, which is Elemental Clash Spell Force, and the other one, Elemental Clash Underworld. And these expansions are full-size expansions that are going to come with around 60 or so more cards. So you count all these together, you have hundreds of cards that you can use to build your various decks. And I know that Andy has another expansion coming out in September, I believe, which is another full-size expansion, plus comes with another mini expansion called Spellcasters, which is going to add another variant to the game. Now, if you were looking at this game and said, well, I like it, but it's maybe a little too simple. There's just not enough variability as far as, you have spells, creatures, flash spells, boon, which is a really neat mechanic, but there's, a quick attacker, but, that's it. Is it going to get stale? Well, I can tell you right now, it will not get stale, especially when you are experimenting and building all these different decks. You can get single color decks, you can try multicolor decks, you can try decks that don't even have creatures in them, that just are just a bunch of spells that do damage. But despite all that, the 2 expansions here, which I'm going to go over in later reviews, are going to bring in even more types of cards to keep the game that much more fresh. So these, I think, really, really help to make the game shine. I'll go over these at a later date. Now, the one main detractor from the game, the one main thing that negative that I can say about it is the fact that it is a traditional deck building game. Like I said before, not Dominion deck building, but as in you have to build a deck of 40 cards. Now the instructions do come with some starter decks, which will let you just dive right into the game and learn the mechanics and how the game plays, so you can then start building your decks from there. But the problem with a deck building game is to play it with people that do not own or are not into the same game. I can bring Elemental Clash to a game meetup and say, hey, let's play Elemental Clash, but I have to give them a starter deck, or a deck that I've created. And that's just not going to have the same impact for them as it would be if they owned the game and created their own starter decks. Now, hopefully, the fact that they play the game, they'll enjoy it, and then purchase their own copy and want to build their own decks. I just think that the nature of a CCG-style deck builder, like Pokemon and the others I mentioned, have that limitation when bringing them to a board game meetup. Now, again, that is not a detractor of Elemental Clash, it's just of the genre in general. But if you can get a couple people that really enjoy the game or more, it's an extremely fulfilling game, and like I keep hammering over and over, it fills a niche that there aren't a lot of other games out there that fill. And just the one last thing that I wanted to say is that there is an iOS and possibly Android version of the game that will be coming out probably this fall, and that is going to have both multiplayer as well as a local AI. So as you can see, the designer here has really been super busy. He's created a ton of cards, a ton of artwork. He's got a bunch of other games as well that you should check out. But he's also working on iOS, and keep in mind this is all self-published. Okay, this is on the Game Crafter, of course, which is where you need to go to purchase a copy, and the price is right. I really think it's worth your time and money to give Elemental Clash a closer look. I think it's a really fun game, and I think you'll probably really enjoy it. I know you can definitely tell this is a labor of love for the designer, and you know, the artwork is great, the gameplay is really fun, So if you're a little hesitant, wait until you see my reviews of the 2 expansions. That make the game that much better. Otherwise, go and pick up a copy of Elemental Clash now and give it a play. You're really going to enjoy it.